All right. So, as I mentioned before, this is the Zero Neil Hurston stage. My name is Shanelle Gabriel. I'm your curator over here today. And I have been, since we're at the Zora Neale Hurston stage, it's been really important for me to bring her words into this space. If you are not aware, Zora Neale Hurston is a poet, a writer, an essayist, a filmmaker, the author of Their Eyes Were Watching God, which many of us are familiar with. So we honor her by having this stage and bringing her legacy into this space. And in introducing this next artist, I thought about her quote. It says, "There is no agony like bearing an untold story inside of you." And when I think about this author's book, Bootless, I think about telling stories. I think about bearing a lot of truths and all in this. And you're in for an amazing treat. So Trace Howard DePass is the author of Self Portrait as the Space Between Us, which is his first book. And now this new book just came out a few weeks ago. So you got the exclusive Bootless. His work has been featured with Poetry Foundation, Hours Poetica, NPR's The Takeaway, Sand, Entropy, Split This Rock, Poetry Project, Bettering American Poetry, and the Academy of American Poets Poem a Day series. DePass is a fellow with Poets House, Obsidian, and Teachers and Writers, and he is here to read excerpts from his book and whatever else he chooses to read. Please welcome to the stage my good friend, Trace Howard DePass.
Thank you, thank you. Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. For sure. Thank you. Right, right. We outside. We outside. We literally right here. Outside. Thank you for that. Word. That's what's up. That's like one of the best intros between Chanel and what just happened just now. That was like one of the best intros. That's what's up. All right. So I got a bunch of stuff in here. This book is inspired by one of Dr. King's last interviews he did before he passed away in 1967. I'm actually going to read the quote by Dr. King that's in the beginning of the book. So, again, Bootless is inspired by Dr. King's 1967 interview for NBC, where he mentions America was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that there was a willingness to give the white peasants from Europe an economic base, and yet it refused to give its black peasants from Africa, who came here involuntarily in chains and had worked for free for 244 years, any kind of economic base. And so the emancipation for the Negro was really freedom to hunger. It was freedom to the winds. This is from Dr. King again, by the way. It was freedom without food to eat or land to cultivate, and therefore it was freedom and famine at the same time. And when white Americans tell the Negro to lift himself up by his own bootstraps, they don't look over the legacy of slavery and segregation. I believe we ought to all do I believe we ought to do all we can to seek to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps, but it's cruel to jest or to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself up by his own bootstraps. And and many Negroes by the thousands and millions bootless, have been left bootless as a result of all these years of oppression. All right, so that was the quote by Dr. King that this book is stemming from a little bit. Uh, Thank you for that. Uh, so I got like some sonnets in here. I got some other stuff. Um, let me let me get y'all into it more and just perform real quick. Okay. So I don't think there comes inherent healing with poems or with time. I was once so triggered. I thought I was home. I took off my bag, my jacket, each layer off my shoulders until I had unzipped and was sitting on my own skin in the dark. So long, it could have only been a chair, wherein my skin hung over the armrest for decoration, growing eyes out in silence like a passive god. and yet everything was just still here, like my eczema, which I rake from so long I pull from scabs, a scaffold with a bike attached. Yes, I did. I thumbed through all this court case, all this heartbreak, all this belt that made the brown a darker brown. I say it fertilized my flower bed on some days, knowing some days it would not. But yes, this whole thing a garden, this itch, this scaffold contraption with its chains and locks and chains and self, how the iron clings to iron so much like how a good mother does a good child after losing custody. I say each bike hugging a scaffold was me, and it was here. I asked to be let out from me. So long in that room that in the interim a boy got his wish for death. He woke up in another mother's arms. He handed us his newest intercom eulogy, and although we know each mother wanted every moment he could have been to rupture the eardrums of a passive God, all we asked for was a moment of silence. And people are counterintuitive. I know I am, but this one time I died so long that while it became a quantum thing, so broken in its compartments, light would not emit. I thought I was giving out a healing, a poem, a love, but fell instead and kept falling until every orifice of me had shifted red and then translucent. And then, whoa! Let's go, poet! And then, what was his name? Whoever he was, I was then. Giving empty space paradoxically warm. With the mouth so good, God undid me. And I kept going, knowing all I wanted was a whole body again. All I asked for was to be undone again. How a mother could undust their son's casket with a wail and begin to have an day within an archive of stillness and still together. I am still. Thank you, brother. All right, all right. I feel you. I feel you. I, I feel that. Thank you for that. Right, right. Oh, there we go. I like that. I like that. Thank you for that. All right. Hot take. I feel you. All right. All right. Thank you for that. All right, I'm about to hop back in. We about to do some. Thank you, brother. I got you. All right. All right. So we're back. We're back. So God bless you too. Thank you. All right. So in this book, I kind of have a lot of words what some people call $5 words. A lot of big words in here. $5 word. Yeah. So uh, I realize even as much as we go through um our life, even if we want to say sometimes rap music glorifies violence or whatever, we do not get what Pablo Escobar gets, right? If a black person were to sell drugs. We do not get what Jeffrey Dahmer gets if a black person kills another person, let alone black person. We don't get these words, we don't get these names. So I try to reclaim certain language in order to remind black people that we get to have big words. We get them, we get to reclaim them, we get to make them our own. I use the word armorial, which means to be heralded. I got it from Edgar Allan Poe. I stole it. There's a lot of things that I took back from white people in this book. um, I think I borrowed a lot from Jory Graham in here. She's one of my favorite authors. This one is called "They're At" or "Threat at Siege Engine," and and I want to remind us that what's happening in Palestine is not the only siege, right? This land that we're on right now is we're here because of siege. We're in one right now. The American project is siege itself, and I have some lighthearted poems. I'll get there too, but this is a poem about my cat and love and siege. All right. So, siege engine. In my own body, here I am, a siege. Overthrowing a home where no one lives but me. I'm too big for my too big head. too barely anything for want. My love built me from a nail in the wall, galloped to meet the socks on the floor. Now a hole in the wall. I would peek through and run some cable through so we all could watch cable. Now, there's a good amount of good reasons why no one lives here with me. My cat even tries to leave. He jumps out the window, off the roof, and waits for me to catch him with the neighbors. And I too am trying to be beautiful and loved this way. I suppose perching for life to begin is this flat line moving me fail forward, feathered closer to grace each time. Going mother after mother, I wake up as a dove, picking lilies from her black, I suppose. I love, so I know I ain't no brevity without withholding a breath. I loved these flying ants infiltrating through all my front doors. So I was the room entered, watching for bites, tender, thicker than all times to consumed. Consistency dragged this long makes me want to bite bird feet too, baby cat. I love you. Ache in my bones. You remind me of what is it to be picked? Thank you. All right, more bars. So, next poem. A white man actually said this to me in real life. He said, trigger warning because white nonsense is crazy. He said that we are all either Hitler or there is no Hitler. That's what this one white professor told me. And I'm like, that's a lot for murder and genocide. That's a lot. That's a lot of people involved now. All right. And apparently, allegedly, perpetuated that. And of course, a white man would say that, right? Get us all involved. Like, hey, we're Hitler too. So, imperialized crown of sonnets. Oh, a crown of sonnets is a bunch of sonnets connected where like the last line is the first line of another sonnet in the book. All right, or in the series of poems. All right. So white man says either we are all Hitler or there is no Hitler. Is history for whiteness metaphysical conceit for whose man's is this? If my ancestors survived war, am I not a veteran? And in the moment my elders die, I was born dead. Who gonna tell me otherwise? Which one of you white folks are gonna say, I too was a slave, I too built the Wall Street, was set ablaze from stock, as I once lived for myself. Reddit called the flip I made from stolen land a short squeeze. I'm allowed to trade as a stolen person. Reddit is right. I's been done, capitalized, I've been done. I's been done, capitalized, I've been done. Had racks off my own back. Black been stacked up for Northern Negroes, personal controlled demolition. My Gaddafi's been from quilt, 4 dinar cut, charcuterie. Been diced fluidly from guillotine, as seen loved ones passed fluently. Passed and went, pathogens, lick moms clean off Earth's blue scab, tectonic, rotting, electronic, oozy us, plastic bagged up, plastic bagged for more object permanence. I serve word bliss when tucking on the blouse of God. I tempted his son with some Gnosticism. I scrolled for the soul before begotten. I scrolled for the soul before begotten. Here, take. I won't profit without breaking you off a piece. I made you in mind pact as a child that I could do this, that I could share and co-experience searing world. For you, you once refused because you love or you loved. We all bared a pronoun we no longer bear, and more for the work of the body dancing shook via poem. How is immorality or immortality relative to what I tap and thus life taps into? Heaven was in a mouth throwing up yesterday, meandering life from wetness. 1 point undead is only 1 point mess. 1 point undead is only my 1 point, my omni-temporal angels dead. Dead ass, yes, alive, kissing my tesseract of memory back to sleep. Cause they know I don't know warmth, just give it. Inside pack compacted for me, for us, by us, FUBU, involuntary till sedentary. I tell on me. I give me away. I don't take care of my freedoms. Even the bullets were a gift. If I ever must go for some thing bad to go someplace else, not a game faith, depends on translation. As I lie, when I promise I'll be good, and I wake up loved, yet for some reason armed. And I wake up loved, yes, somehow armed. I'm intentional about dying happy. Before I die, I will protect someone I love, or perhaps we are all somehow protected. And I'm the one opening doors I shouldn't. I'm the one paying someone to chisel my own grave, etc. Because I owed whom owned or who owed you my life. Negro slave, yes, for black folk too. I'm bought and sold at any time too. This nonprofit work for the child teacher won't be called labor. I've earned time's hand, patiently eroding trapezius off spinal tissue. I got me so messed up during the pandemic. I reminisce about the pandemic. I reminisce about it in it. How I wrote my best poem on returning home, not knowing I was already moved out and on I had to move. I wish I'd written more about the plane as I was on it. How could I have missed more opportunity to write about how classism plays out right as it finishes me like violence getting off the literal plane's landings? I know this opportunity is scarce and deflationary asset. I know it alleviated me all of my bewildered me had I invested. Bewildered me had I invested. A post-colonial world might still be racist. A post-carceral world might still have men who take from it. And when I'm not okay, and yet me on the edge of my mind and a bed might still be elite. If caught me done on in Y3s on a night Fridays on my feet, wanted yet done with want. I'm too anxious with ownership, too colonized to be owning this. I'm good riddance and get off this. No home, just closing, and I'm on sale. Lines mean half off. Yankee means American and likely Northern. White man says we are all either Hitler. Thank you. All right, maybe like one or two more. One more. All right. So real quick, one last one. This is just about how in Florida there's a bunch of iguanas. If you've ever been to Florida, and you can legally kill an iguana in Florida. And I thought about that and wrote a poem about it because there's just that many, and it's considered an invasive species. Remember those invasive species flies we had, those lantern flies? Let's think about that in this one. So this is called Bad Pollinator. There are so many iguanas in Florida. There is incentive for Florida to kill them, for them to become ornaments, pelts, decorum. A gun provides a bullet with escapism, so it leaks onto the concrete and everyone as allegory. And allegedly, no comment on the aspens, no comment from the shinnecock, no comment on the huckleberries and pollen foreign to East Coast blood boast. My bad, you familiar berries, you little bugs, for my cowardice as a witness to my own body unscathed, and how the trees which built up my lungs from actual dust have returned to it. That a speck, a blaze, a foot, the animals losing their habitats every day. I only have my Fifth Amendment, how the animal is spotted red, shot out his habitat, etc., etc. Thank you.
Perfect. Watch your step. Thank you. I'm hot. All right, I'm hot. Yeah. Everybody, please give another round of applause to Trace DePass. Yes, give yourself a woo. You deserve a woo. All right. No, it's amazing. Thank you so much for reading. He's been reading from his book Bootless, which he has available for sale. So you would be going to him, but he will be going over there after this and signing some copies and taking pictures and shaking hands and kissing babies and all that stuff. But no, we get to talk a little bit. So Trace, man, absolutely. Well, you've been a really brilliant writer for a really long time, and just watching your growth has been amazing. I'm so curious. How does this book differ in process, in writing,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
growth from self-portrait as the space between us, your other book?
For sure. Well, I think that this is one singular voice compared to my last book, which was a bunch of really like ethereal, abstract voices coming together. I had so many different characters in there. I was talking about Pokemon and using so many different things. I was anthropomorphizing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I was hiding behind metaphor, but it was a little very much metaphorical and stuff like that. And I think I'm getting to the truth. I'm very much talking about my hood and myself in my own narrative. I guess I was in my first book, but I was using other things that weren't me as a vessel for my narrative, like an actor does, you know? Um, and in this one, I'm just using me. I'm not relying on a metaphor. That last poem I read, there was no metaphor in it, you know?
I mean, I think even I'm so it's so interesting to think about that when you say that because I read the first book. I have the first book.
I appreciate you reading and having it.
And I kind of glimpsed at it before coming here.
Yeah.
And yeah, that book was very much like I'm going to kind of give you a story and then tie that book back to the concrete of me. And this one very much seems like it's like, nah, it's me all up in your face.
Yeah, yeah.
And so
Very angrier too.
yeah, that too, you know. But I see nuance. I see
Yeah.
hurt. I see also wondering and things of that nature.
Mhm.
Well, we talked about research with one of our previous poets.
Yeah, yeah.
And you brought it up before I could
Yeah,
because we
yeah.
had talked about this book in advance. The Martin Luther King
quote.
bootstrap, this
Yeah, yeah.
that paragraph, that story, that conversation that he had, that speech.
Mhm.
How did you? I guess was there research that did to infuse that in here, or was it
Yeah.
really just only that thing, that one thing that led to this plethora of conversations in this book?
Thank you for that. There's a lot of conversations that led to a lot of different parts of this book, and that particular interview was one of them. And that interview is referenced a couple of different times within the book. It's referenced in the poem "Bootless," the poem "The Animal That Adapts to Burning Houses," because that is also another quote that I'm playing with from Dr. King. Because in that same interview, he said that he feared that he was integrating his people into a burning house. That popular phrase at a point, or was popular at a point, I think.
It still is. It's still relevant.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. That's all the same book. Sorry, it's all the same interview, which is referenced in the book. There's a couple of other interviews that I was really sitting with a lot during the 60s and 70s, into the 80s even. A lot of Nikki Giovanni's old interviews, of course, the one with James Baldwin that's been going viral very much recently as well. But yeah.
He's promoting. You said make sure you check out his books. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh boy.
I feel you.
Thank you. We appreciate you. So. Mm-hmm. Amen. Thank you
man.
for sharing
Thank you.
that. Thank you for sharing that, my friend. Yes. I appreciate the love. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's basically it's weaved in and out, and I think that it's there's a lot of life that's being referenced.
Thank you.
You know, a lot of my own personal narratives and conversations with my actual family. I lost an aunt as I was writing this book, and so I actually wrote the first poem of this book, I think last, so the first two poems of this book last, inspired by my aunt who passed away. This aunt of mine wasn't necessarily my blood aunt. She was my grandmother's best friend, and she was the cook for my church and a lot of the South Side community from that. And I lost her as her husband. My uncle was helping me paint my house, and
wow.
it was a lot. And so I start with a lot of it's intergenerational grief, because it's a grief that I'm grieving, but also my grandmother said, and I quote, "I lost all my real friends during COVID and during the last couple of years." So I'm feeling her loss. I'm feeling the loss of my church, and I'm wondering, it made me wonder what Dr. King was thinking about. He said, "I may not make it to the mountaintop," and I didn't understand that phrase until I got older. I'm like, oh, he's scared. He's letting you know, like, I might die. When I saw him say it, I'm like, oh, he's saying I might die, and he's reckoning with that.
And I don't think we think about how we as a people have to grieve and keep moving. And there were themes about that. And I think almost every poet that graced this stage's performance, we all are dealing with some form of grief, whether it be present, whether it be past, whether it be, like you mentioned, generation. And you talk a lot about this generational things that are passed down in several poems that are here. And, you do it such a graceful way.
Thank you.
of making us feel like we're there and experiencing this with
Yeah.
you.
Hmm.
Um, and I can't talk to Trace without talking about form
Oh,
because Trace is a form geek.
that's so
Okay,
funny.
when
I
it
am.
comes to poetry, like different cool ways to lay it out in page
Yeah.
styles, and you use sonnets in here and
Sonnets
there
all
that
the time.
sonnets. I guess I want to ask you. Is that just an easier way for you to craft because you do it
Yeah.
so well, and I wonder if it's like
Yeah.
become like
Second
second
nature.
nature, or
Yeah.
is that still something that you that the form itself helps you write?
Yeah, I think I'm a person sometimes I need constraints writing wise in order to like, make it work. I need a certain beat or I need the form. The form is the beat to me.
Mm.
The form is rhythm, the form is meter. I know Shane McCrae, another brilliant author you should go check out. Um, he broke down a sonnet in a way that was just counting like how the syllables stressed. He wasn't even counting the syllables themselves. It was the
Mm.
sound of them going up and down. I'm like, how you break down a sonnet to the to the cosine waves and the sine waves? How you do that in a sonnet? And I love that. I love the pioneering of the sonnet that's happening.
Mhm.
That Terrence Hayes was doing it. I referenced Terrence Hayes in my first book. There's so many. There's so many simultaneous pioneerings of poetry happening at once by black people, and we need to have names for some of these things.
Mhm.
There's a I think I get to a point where I can do the form stuff without thinking about it. I know how to write multi-column and multi-directional poems without thinking about it
Yeah.
because it's just how
Genius level.
that's just how grammar works for me. And I think Nkosi is another one of those people. He
Mhm.
wrote the foreword of this book, another great poet y'all should check out. You know, um, and I make it into games. I've been able to gamify it with youth and with young people, like just by starting off with a dependent clause, using the yes and. The yes and is a contrapuntal.
Mm.
If you keep passing it around, and that's one big sentence that could be read in multiple ways. Uh,
Yeah.
and I think my mind is just a matter is I've built my mind to just find the poetry and find the form in it, or
Mm.
find the beat in it. Uh, and I'm glad I was a beatboxer and a poet before I was a rapper. And all these other things. I even I wouldn't say I made a new contrapuntal, but a contrapuntal. Sorry if I'm
I
speaking
was
over.
I was I was gonna ask you. I was
Yeah,
gonna give
let me
you a
break
little moment
to break it
then to
down.
say break down with it. So we all know what contrapuntal is. Please share.
So that is a poem written in two columns. At the end of this book, you'll see one of them. Uh, where the poem is written in two columns, like Ten Commandments or something similar to that, right? And you can read it down the columns and also straight across. You know what I'm saying? All right, and you can read it in different ways, sometimes up and down. The last one you can read it in every direction. So I was playing with that, and I found out about it just trying it out. And then I showed it to John Sands when I was in high school, and he's like, "Oh, you made a contrapuntal?" I was like, "We do this? Poets do this?
Poets
Black
do
people can do this?
this.
I'm gonna do this now." Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and I've been publishing and working on it basically since then. And I tried to find a way to keep doing it without even needing that structure. Like, how can I keep playing with that without needing it? And so I came up with another similar thing by just using two different fonts that connect and disconnect and form the same
Wow.
poem. And then contrapuntal that, I'm like, how can I push what Tayimba and what Terrence Hayes is doing? How can I
Mhm.
use what they're doing and push it forward and include what might be new, what they might not have thought to present or to publish. And yeah, I guess it's kind of how the way my mind works. There's about like 19 sonnets in here, maybe 5 contrapuntals, and some of that overlaps as well.
It's amazing, amazing. So I'm going to open the floor for any questions. If anyone has anything for Trace about his process, about the book, about form, because you just saw him just completely geek out really quickly. It was like it's great. God
Thank you
bless you
so much,
too.
brother.
Thank
Thank
you
you so
so
much.
much. This is the love hour. I feel like we've
Yeah,
been getting a
yeah.
lot of love
Hmm.
from our community members. Go ahead.
Yeah,
All right. So, fellow poet to another.
yeah.
I like to use the mic.
We
You
hear you.
good? You
I
good?
like to use different types of forms. So, like,
Okay.
I have a
Hmm.
poem where I wrote in the shape of a teardrop.
Yeah,
Have
Mm-hmm.
you done anything like that, or have you
yeah,
experimented with like found poems?
yeah,
How does
yeah.
that work for you?
Um, there's a little moth, but yeah, found poems are beautiful. They're dope. Found poems kind of just remind me of playwriting or the process of playwriting, the process of listening to something or somebody and getting their voice, their diction down, their rhythm. I love playwriting as well. So I love that. And then when it comes to concrete poetry, which is what you're referring to, that or sometimes ekphrastic, they could go into that category as well. Um, I'll play with it, but I've been raised by so many different poets and people that I'd wanna add my own swag to that. You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to keep it as a teardrop. I would want it to be read in different ways or something like that. But I play with the form on the page for sure. You know, and I think that that's beautiful to do. I would love to read a book of just of just concrete imagery poems. That would be great.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
it's coming.
I
It's
love
coming.
that. Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, that is all the time we have. But
Okay.
everybody, please give another round of applause to Trace. Thank you so much.